Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're taking a closer look at a topic that's been generating a lot of buzz lately: dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine.
We're going to be diving deep into, dopamine is often talked about as the pleasure chemical,
Right.
but we're going to explore how it's actually much more complex than that.
Yeah.
How it's connected to motivation, addiction, and even how we achieve our goals.
Uh-huh.
And get this, our main source material today is actually a conversation from another podcast.
Interesting. I love it.
It just goes to show, insightful conversations about complex topics can happen anywhere.
Absolutely.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a whole new understanding of this powerful brain chemical and how it shapes your everyday life, and some tips on what you can do to harness its power.
I'm excited to get into it. It's fascinating how much we think we know about dopamine, but often it's just scratching the surface.
Right.
For example, many people think dopamine equals pleasure.
Like, that's the whole story.
Yeah.
Dopamine equals pleasure.
Right, but it's actually more nuanced than that.
It is.
Yeah.
So true. It's not just about the reward itself.
Exactly.
It's that anticipation. It's the pursuit
Yes.
that really gets the dopamine flowing.
It's the seeking.
Think about like that feeling you get when you're about to go on a trip you've been looking forward to forever.
Oh, yeah. I love that feeling.
Or you're finally going to try that restaurant everyone's been raving about.
Uh-huh.
That buzz of excitement.
Totally.
That's dopamine at work.
That's it. And there's actually a fascinating evolutionary reason for that.
Right.
This seeking system is hardwired into our brains.
It is like deep, deep down in there.
Yeah, it goes way back to our ancestors, right?
Uh-huh.
Back then, finding food, resources, all that stuff wasn't a guarantee.
It was a rough life back then.
It was. So our brains developed this dopamine-driven motivation system.
To keep us going.
Yeah, to keep us searching, exploring, striving for survival.
It's wild to think about. It's like we're all wired to be explorers and seekers thanks to this ancient chemical messenger.
I know, it's really cool. It's in our DNA.
It is.
It is. And to really understand how this works, we need to kind of delve into the brain's reward system.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Imagine it as this complex network of pathways that just light up when we encounter something pleasurable or beneficial.
So like a neurological treasure map leading us towards things that feel good.
Exactly. When we do something rewarding, like enjoying a delicious meal
Ooh, yeah.
or accomplishing a challenging task,
Uh-huh.
our brain releases dopamine.
That little hit.
That little hit.
Yeah.
And it reinforces those behaviors, making us want to repeat them.
So it's like our brain giving us a little pat on the back, like, good job, do that again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this mechanism is so powerful. I mean, it's what drives us to seek out things that enhance our survival and well-being.
It makes sense.
It does. But like anything powerful, there's a flip side. This drive for dopamine, while essential, can sometimes lead us down a bit of a tricky path.
I have a feeling where this is going.
I know, right? I mean, think about how our world today is like overflowing with things that just trigger those dopamine rushes.
Oh, yeah.
Social media,
Oh, absolutely.
streaming services,
Yeah.
games, even that news app that's constantly pinging you with updates.
Oh, I know.
They're all designed to keep us hooked
That's true.
on these quick bursts of dopamine.
Oh, yeah, I know. I've definitely fallen into that trap of like endless scrolling or binge watching.
Totally.
It's almost like these apps have hijacked our brain's reward system,
Yeah.
making it so much harder to appreciate the satisfaction that comes from long-term goals or deeper pursuits.
It's almost as if they've like tapped into our brain's ancient wiring for their own gain.
Yeah, for sure.
But don't worry, we're onto them.
Okay, good.
There are ways to regain control.
Okay, yeah.
The source we're looking at today mentions something called dopamine fasting.
Dopamine fasting.
Yeah, and it's really captured people's attention.
Okay, dopamine fasting, it sounds intense.
I know, right?
Is it really about depriving yourself of all pleasure and joy?
Not exactly. Before you imagine yourself locked in a sensory deprivation tank, let's demystify dopamine fasting.
Okay.
It's not about total deprivation.
Okay.
It's more like a conscious reset for your brain,
Uh-huh.
a chance to recalibrate what it finds rewarding.
Okay, so less like a strict fast
Yeah.
and more like a mindful break from the things that are constantly triggering those dopamine bursts.
Precisely. And there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that this reset can be incredibly beneficial.
Interesting. So what happens during a dopamine fast? Does it actually like change our brain chemistry?
Well, remember neuroplasticity,
Yeah,
the brain's remarkable ability to rewire itself based on our experiences.
it's amazing.
I know when we engage in dopamine fasting, we're essentially giving our brains a chance to break free from those ingrained patterns of instant gratification.
So by taking a break from those constant dopamine hits, we're actually helping our brains rewire themselves to find satisfaction in other healthier ways.
Exactly. Think of it like hitting the refresh button.
I like that.
On your brain's reward system, you're not eliminating dopamine entirely, but rather retraining your brain to appreciate the rewards that come from effort-delayed gratification and activities that align with your values.
That makes a lot of sense. So instead of getting those quick bursts from, say, scrolling through social media, we might start to find more satisfaction in finishing that challenging project or spending quality time with loved ones.
That's the idea, and this shift in perspective can have like a ripple effect on our overall well-being.
Wow.
People who've experimented with dopamine fasting report feeling less anxious, more focused, and more connected to their true selves.
It's like decluttering your mental space and making room for what truly matters.
Exactly.
So how does someone actually do a dopamine fast?
Well, the beauty of dopamine fasting is its flexibility. You can tailor it to your own needs and goals.
Okay, that's good.
For someone struggling with social media, it might involve setting aside specific times each day to disconnect from their phone and engage in a more fulfilling activity. For someone struggling with emotional eating, it might mean finding healthier ways to cope with stress and boredom.
So it's not about following a rigid set of rules, but rather becoming more aware of our triggers and consciously choosing different paths.
Exactly. It's about shifting from a state of reactivity to a state of intentionality.
That's powerful. I like that. It sounds like a really powerful tool for reclaiming control over our attention and choices.
It is.
But I imagine it's not always easy, especially in a world that's like constantly vying for our attention.
You're absolutely right. It's like breaking any habit. It takes time and effort. But remember, it's about progress, not perfection.
Oh, true.
Every small step you take towards reclaiming control over your dopamine is a victory.
This reminds me of something we talked about in a previous deep dive, the power of small changes.
Oh, yeah.
Even tiny adjustments can have a ripple effect on our well-being.
Absolutely. Consistency is key. Start with small, manageable goals and gradually increase the duration or intensity of your dopamine fasts as you feel more comfortable.
It sounds like dopamine fasting isn't a quick fix, but rather a journey of self-discovery and mindful living.
It is.
Before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how our listeners can find healthy ways to stimulate dopamine production, those activities that bring long-term satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment.
That's a great question. It's all about finding activities that align with your values and passions. Maybe it's pursuing a creative hobby,
Okay.
learning a new skill,
Uh-huh.
or volunteering your time to a cause you care about.
I love that it's about finding those activities that light you up from the inside out, and I imagine the dopamine released during the pursuit of a meaningful goal is just as important as the dopamine release when we achieve it.
Exactly. It's about embracing the journey, not just the destination, and don't underestimate the power of human connection.
Oh, that's so important.
Spending quality time with loved ones, engaging in meaningful conversations, building supportive relationships are all fantastic ways to boost dopamine naturally.
Wow. It's amazing how we started with just like a little snippet of a casual conversation.
You know?
And we ended up uncovering so much about dopamine. This deep dive has really been a journey of discovery, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It highlights how even seemingly simple things, like that urge to check your phone, are connected to these complex brain processes.
It really is. And it's not just about understanding those processes,
Right.
but also like realizing we actually have the power to influence them.
Yeah,
We're not just passengers on this dopamine-driven train.
right. You have some control here.
Yeah, we can choose which direction we want to go.
Exactly. This deep dive has really emphasized that we're not at the mercy of our brain chemistry.
We're not.
We can make conscious choices
Yeah.
to promote healthy dopamine production, break free from that grip of instant gratification, and find satisfaction in more fulfilling ways.
I think that's such an empowering message for our listeners.
I agree.
You really can reshape your relationship with dopamine. And in doing so, create a more fulfilling and intentional life.
It's all about finding that balance, enjoying life's simple pleasures, while also cultivating the discipline and focus to pursue those deeper, more meaningful goals that bring lasting satisfaction.
Well said. So before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of dopamine,
Yeah.
let's leave our listeners with a little challenge. What's one small change you can make today to start reclaiming control of your dopamine and experience a more fulfilling life?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
It could be anything. Maybe you swap out that evening scroll through social media with 30 minutes dedicated to a personal project.
I like that.
Or perhaps you resist that sugary snack craving and opt for a walk in nature without your phone. Even a conscious effort to engage in a deep, meaningful conversation with a loved one can be a powerful step.
The key is to start somewhere,
Yes,
even if it seems small.
exactly.
And remember, consistency is everything gately. These small shifts over time can lead to remarkable transformations in how you feel, how you think, and how you experience the world.
It's exciting to think about, isn't it? Imagine if we all became a little more mindful of our dopamine, a little more intentional with our choices.
That's a world I'd love to see. And who knows, maybe you'll even inspire others to join you on this journey. So to all our incredible listeners out there, we encourage you to share your experiences with us. What strategies have you found helpful for finding healthy motivation and satisfaction? We're always eager to learn from your insights.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those dopamine levels balanced.